This is entry 8 of Expedition Handheld. I'm Anna Patrick Murray.
I'm Russ Crandall, and we'll be your guides on this journey of handheld gaming discovery.
Buckle up. We ride at dawn. Welcome, everybody, to episode 8. I'm Adam, and Russ is here.
I'm
despite
here.
Some medical stuff.
I got a swollen eye. It's been a whole thing. And so I don't know if people noticed, but like my last video, I didn't show my face once because I was like, I don't want to show this Quasimodo thing. It was a lot worse up until this morning. So I'm feeling better about it now. But my eye's a little funky looking. I think the audio listeners aren't even going to notice. Yeah.
Well, you should have seen the other guy. And the other guy might have been one Jeff from Craft Computing. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, guys. How's it going? You healing up just fine, Russ, over there?
Yeah. Honestly, I was planning on sitting this week out, which is one of the reasons why we invited you. But then when I heard you were coming, I was like, no, I don't want to miss Jeff. And so I came out and, just came anyway. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we invited ETA Prime, but he only shows hands on videos. So.
Right.
It would have been puppets.
Yeah.
No, Jeff, we've known each other going way back. Before we dig into the show, who are you?
Who am I?
Who's your daddy and what does he do?
Yeah, I am Jeff with Craft Computing, run a YouTube channel, and I do everything from servers and home lab to consumer gaming, PC builds, high-end water cooling down to entry-level stuff. But I also do handheld reviews and have an affinity for handhelds that dates back literally decades. So you asked me to be on, and I'm like, dude, you couldn't have chose a better person.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Yeah, you're in the right place because we're on an expedition of handheld discovery. So thanks for joining us on this leg of the adventure. And I think we should get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. So First up, let's hit a couple news pieces. The first one is the Evercade Nexus is available for pre-order right now. I woke up this morning, I got an email and said, hey, for US people and Canadian people, I guess too, head over to Best Buy, Amazon, wherever you can pre-order and pick up the Evercade Nexus. So this is Evercade's newest handheld. And Russ, you've used the Evercade.
I have one of their older models, and I liked it. It's a totally unique kind of ecosystem compared to what I'm used to, which is all, mostly emulation and stuff. Like this is actually cartridge based. And, it's kind of this fun feeling where you're like, hey, these things are actually licensed, like there's no gray area there. And it feels pretty great to be able to support that. And then think that, some of this money is actually going to the license holders. I don't think it's like the original developers of a lot of these games. It's a lot of times it's the rights holders, but still it's kind of cool that at least it's an ecosystem that works, And so I did a review of their handheld. The handheld itself wasn't great from a hardware perspective compared to some of the things I had seen, just in terms of like the D-pad and the buttons and stuff. But this new one, the Nexus, does look pretty promising. It's a lot bigger than the older ones too.
Yeah, what is that, a 5.9-inch screen, it looks like?
Yeah.
I like the look of this one. Ergonomics seem to be fairly on point. I mean, without putting it in my hands, but I like the layout of it. Looks pretty good.
Jeff, have you messed with Evercade before?
I have not messed with. I'm familiar with Evercade, but I didn't mess with their first handheld. No.
Okay, yeah, I've only ever gotten my hands on the original one. I don't have it here at home. I keep it at the office, and yeah, I think it came out during the early days of the pandemic, and I remember reviewing it over on PCWorld. And yeah, I feel the same as you, Russ. Like the hardware, the physical console itself, it was fine. I mean, not the most ergonomic, not the best buttons, whatever, but the idea behind it of having original cartridges and not emulated, and I mean, over the course of the history, they've released some really, really interesting stuff. Because I think early on that was the other thing too. Is like, okay, this is a cool idea, and they've got a bunch out, but how long can they last? Are they going to keep going? And I mean, it's 2026, and they continue to go. So good for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Evercade in general is it just becomes a better and better deal, because not only can you do this on the handheld, but you can use those cartridges on their console too. So it's like you can have your one cartridge and use it in various places. And I love the idea that the hardware levels up with the games that you already have. And so that is kind of cool, that whole backwards compatibility thing. And they've got some great collections nowadays. They just, with this one, they're talking about launching it with Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie and stuff. So they're really graduating to a little bit harder to play systems, which is awesome. And it's got twin sticks. I believe this is the first one that has 2 analog sticks. And it's so funny. They're like kind of discovering things that are already part of like the emulation scene. So they're like, oh, you can rotate it and now use it in Tate mode. It's like we've always been able to do that, and it's always been awkward. But hey, points to them for actually trying and promoting that, which is kind of cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully, maybe we can get some into to do some testing and we'll cover it here. But yeah, I mean, once again, I'm just glad they're continuing. Is it something I play that often? No, but it's something that I'm happy to support because I like their mission statement. So
yeah,
nice.
Pricing's not bad either. I don't know if you noticed, but it's like $170 for the handheld. Not bad when you think about it. Obviously the cartridges are all that other expense part, but still for hardware, that's not bad too. Especially if you've already got, like, say, the home console, and you're like, oh, I'd like to play this in handheld. Mm-hmm. This might be a great way to graduate to it.
I'm seeing $199 actually.
Oh, really?
So I don't
no,
know.
I'm sorry. I was looking at pounds. It's 170 pounds. It is $199. Sorry. Yeah, still not bad. Under $200. So.
Yep. The Brits get all the breaks.
Yeah, they
Dang
do.
it.
Well,
I don't know about that. Speaking of the breaks, I guess Dolphin has added Game Boy player support. It's a small little thing that kind of came across the news wire that I just threw on here. And my first question is, how much do you think this matters, Russ? Because there's a lot of ways to emulate Game Boy.
Right. I think it really is just kind of a neat idea, being able to, it was a piece of hardware that wasn't supported before. Now it is, but if you have a machine running Dolphin, you've got a machine that can run a Game Boy emulator too, and probably a little bit better, more shader support, things like that. But it is always awesome. And they've always had like the GBA connectivity option too. So you could load up a second Game Boy Advance game while you're playing a Dolphin game, like a GameCube game. So there were some that supported that, like Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventure. Animal Crossing had that too. Like if you plugged in a GBA, it didn't need to have a game in it, I don't think. It would just open up a new island you could go to. And so little things like that, right? And so that's always been part of Dolphin, but the Game Boy player support, the idea of playing these Game Boy cartridges on your Dolphin machine is now available. They've really been cooking lately, though. I don't know if you guys saw, but they added Triforce support officially. So I don't know if you guys know what Triforce is. So this is a game engine that's basically based off of GameCube, but ran the arcade games. So there was Mario Kart Grand Prix, if you guys ever walk into an arcade and you see Mario Kart. And there was an F-Zero one that was based off of GX, so it was like the GameCube one. So those got official support in Dolphin maybe about 2 months ago. And so now you can play Mario, if you get your hands on the ROM, legally dumped from your arcade machine, then you can play those games like on a handheld or on your computer or whatever, which is kind of crazy. So they've been cooking, and I think just adding little things like this is pretty awesome. We've always been able to play Triforce, but it was through a fork of Dolphin that other people were maintaining, but now they've added it to the official build. So super awesome there.
Well, but specifically, this is also Game Boy player, like what was the official name of the actual Game Boy player that attached to the GameCube? I think it was just called Game Boy Player.
I believe it was
right?
the Game Boy Player.
Yeah, I think it was called the Game Boy Player.
Yeah, so was that actual hardware or software emulation, or did they have a native chip in there running
I believe it was native hardware. I believe there was a Game Boy processor on board, and it communicated through the expansion slot on the bottom of the GameCube.
Right.
Okay. So
I'm looking at it right now. So it's just like a stack, kind of like that old Sega CD stack.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it would have been funny if there would have been some sort of emulation. So you're essentially emulating an emulator on the GameCube. But I think there were some games that did have interesting functionality that unlocked if you played the Game Boy Advance version on the Game Boy player for the GameCube, right? I don't remember any examples specifically, but I feel like there were some enhancements that you could only get if you played it on the Game Boy player.
Looking at it now, I can see there's a bunch of like backgrounds that are available, and so you can kind of have like a nice banner around your games as you're playing, because obviously they're not going to fit the 16:9 aspect ratio of a TV. But yeah, it looks kind of neat, like some of the options they have with this thing. Either way, it's just cool that they preserved this in the first place. Like this weird niche piece of hardware that we now have available via software emulation, which is cool.
Yeah, and I want to know how hard it was actually to implement, because it seems like, oh, you just put a Game Boy emulator in Dolphin, but nah, this seems a little different. So who knows? And this last piece of news seems to be kind of a big deal. You came in very excited about it this morning, Russ. So why don't you take this on?
Yeah. So yesterday we saw some posts from Sadly It's Bradley, and he had mentioned that Proton for ARM, it's got like official release apps from Steam and from Valve. And so what this essentially means is that people can start messing around with putting Steam on ARM-based devices, be it a handheld or a phone or whatever. This is nothing official. Like, it's not an app that you can grab the APK and then install it on your Android device or any of that stuff. But it is looking like, that official support that we've been hearing about for a while now from the Steam Frame, which is their VR headset, which runs a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. And so this is basically those software pieces coming together with official Proton for ARM. So already we are seeing some movement. So ROG, which is a platform we've talked about a lot on this podcast, is a Linux-based operating system that you can install mostly on like cheaper devices, but they do have builds for Snapdragon devices like the Retroids and the Odins and Thors and stuff. And so they've now added official Steam to that. And I messed around with it yesterday. You essentially just go into ROG with the most recent build, and then it just says install Steam, and you click on that, and then it installs Steam in the background. You hear the Steam sound, it brings up Steam Big Picture mode, and so it's basically just Linux running that, through ARM, and you go through your library and start downloading and playing games. Now, the experience is very, very rough, and I'm thinking about making a video about it later today, because it's like it is super cool to see on a video, but not super cool to actually do. And so that's kind of what I want to show is like, hey, buyer beware, like don't overwrite your internal system storage to put this on here to try out Steam. But it's still a really cool idea. And I think probably the most important and like tempting part about all this is that we've got these apps on Android that like Game Native and Game Hub, and they basically use translation layers to translate from Android to Windows to Linux to be able to start playing. And they are really impressive. I love it, and I make a lot of videos about it, but this is removing one of those layers of translation because it's no longer having to deal with Android. It's just Linux to ARM basically. And so that's what I'm excited about, is the potential of this and the performance potentially being better than what we're seeing on the Android side, which is already very good.
Yeah, and one thing about the Proton 11 launch is the reason that's important is it comes with FEX preloaded in it as well. So you're not only getting the DXVK and the wine translation to convert your games over to Linux native, you're also getting that x86 to ARM translation via FEX. Which is like really the big key that we've been waiting for to make some more modern Windows games playable on handhelds.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's really interesting. The biggest issue right now with ROG is that it all loads from an SD card. You can put it on internal storage, but you would overwrite your Android build basically. So you're loading these games, downloading, installing, playing off of an SD card. That's not the best experience. So you're waiting, like, you want to play Megamonk, which is like less than a gigabyte. You're going to be waiting to install it and then to actually load it up. So.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that's why you're running into performance issues, or because it's early days for FEX?
Yeah, I think it's a combo. It not necessarily. It may maybe just be like optimizations with ROG and FEX in particular, but yeah, it's still very early days. And, one other issue I've found is that I'll load a game and it'll load behind the Steam interface. And there's no like Alt tab on a handheld device, so I can't switch windows. And so I can hear the game going. It sounds like it's running at full speed, but I can't actually play it. So there are little things like that, which I assume in the coming weeks they're going to be ironed out. But right now, yeah, like I mentioned, it's just super early.
So so you mentioned when you load Steam up, it's running in big picture mode. Is it running in GameScope mode, or is it just the desktop big picture mode?
Good question. I don't know. I don't want to say one way or the other. I think it might be GameScope, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, yeah, because I also wonder, like, you know, if that'll help a little bit on the performance if they run in GameScope mode to kind of give priority to like just drawing the game stuff. So interesting. Well, so does it, like, you've only tried it on ROG Nix on what handheld?
Yeah, I did on the Thor. Oh, okay. So Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. So not the same processing power as the Steam frame, but close. And it's interesting. And I haven't really installed any big games to really see if there's a big difference between like Game Native and Game Hub and this, but mostly just smaller ones because of that download speed and the install time. But in general, yeah, I mean, the games are working and a lot better than they were when Game Hub and Game Native first came out, where it was like, hey, a couple games are going to run, you know. This one is like most of the games are running pretty well. It's just a matter of like the interface and you know, those little things that just need to be ironed out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff happening in the world. You know, we'll keep our eyes on it, but I think let's move on ahead. But before we do that, we should take a quick little break for an ad. And now we are back to talk about what's in our pockets. And in an absence of brand new stuff coming out, you know, we got some stuff we're working on for sure. But I continue to dive deep into my experience with the classics. Last week I talked about getting a DSi and, you know, making some changes to that and having some fun. And I actually feel like that conversation went really well, Russ. People seem to enjoy us reminiscing about the DS.
Yeah, it was super fun. Like I hadn't thought that deeply about the DS in so long, and so it was super cool to be able to do that. And yeah, just a wonderful handheld.
Nice. I will say before we dive into the other topic, I have been testing the DSpico. I got it in literally, nice. I think Wednesday, or Tuesday, something like that. So we did have a question from somebody asking if we're going to talk about the DSpico. I say I need a little bit more time, so I think we're going to couch this for next week. But for just quick TLDR, it's a open source hardware and software based flash card for the Nintendo DS, and so far, spoilers, I'm loving it.
Nice.
So yeah,
good.
Jeff, you have a collection of R4 cards.
Oh yeah, I've got. if there's been a flash cart for a Nintendo device that's been created in the last 20 years, I probably have it. Not something I talk about publicly a lot, but I mean, which DS do you want? I have the original with my Cyclo Evolution card.
Ooh, wow.
I've got the DSi with, hey, look, that's actually an official R4, an R4 Snoopy.
Hey. Yeah.
Nice.
I've got. Do we want to go 3DS? I've got the Mario Edition 3DS.
Nice.
I've also got the 3DS XL. The new 3DS XL.
Yeah.
And this
it's got the little nub.
Yeah, it's got the little nub. And I actually have one of the early Stargate cards for that one. So before we could openly mod, soft mod the 3DS XL, I had a Stargate card for that. So
nice.
Are you familiar with the DSpico?
I saw that you posted about it a couple of days ago, and I wasn't aware of it, but I am now. As a huge fan of the RP2040, and in fact, someone who's building a retail device out of an RP2040, I love seeing it implemented in that way. So yeah.
Oh, is that what your device runs?
Yeah, that's what my temp sensors, OpenViro, is based off of. It runs on an RP2040. So basically, I have a flash card that'll tell you the temperature of your server racks.
Oh, well, because this card does have like little headers on it that you can attach stuff to. So maybe you make another version of this flash card and it has temperature sensors for some reason.
Maybe we'll do a temperature sensor version that also breaks out into a flash card, so you can just plug it in and play at the server rack.
Right. You can just monitor your temperatures on the DS.
There you go. Ooh, I like that.
Russ, are you planning on getting one in? Are you interested in checking it out?
I honestly, I saw it and I thought, oh, it's really neat, but I hadn't planned on getting one. I've got a few different flash carts. There was another one that came out maybe a year or two ago. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a transparent shell. And I use that often. I don't have it here on me. But yeah, I had thought about it, but I hadn't really pulled the trigger and picking one up. But I'm glad you got one so we can talk about it.
Yeah. We'll get into it next week. So I'm gonna couch more talk about that. But really, what I've been doing recently is I got the Game Boy Advance along with my Nintendo DSi, and I've been making some changes to it. But before I talk about the changes, I want to talk about playing on the Game Boy Advance, because holy hell, I totally forgot how excruciatingly painful it is to play without a backlight or an edge light or anything like that. Like I powered it on and I was like, oh man, Game Boy Advance, I love it. And then I was like, I'm in my living room. I've got light coming in. Like
as soon as that Nintendo logo drops and you hear the ding and you're like, oh, I'm so excited. And then the game loads and you're like, all right, excitement's gone. This sucks.
What game is this? I can't see it.
Dude, how did we do it? I really don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, everyone had that little snake thing. Remember
I had the worm light for...
Yeah, worm light. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually,
yes.
So when I bought this, he threw in the worm light for me so that I could try it out. And I was just like... sitting there fiddling with it the whole time, being like, okay, what's the right angle? Do I want it closer? Do I want it further away? And like, I mean, I was able to make it work, obviously, better than not having it. But I was just like, this is hilarious. This is stupid.
I think there's an experience that only people of our age would have ever had, and that is sitting in the backseat of the car, playing Game Boy by the passing streetlights.
Right.
Have you guys ever done that?
Yep.
Where you're holding the Game Boy and you're like, yeah.
There are people who make shaders that mimic that. They try to get like
really?
a passing light. Yeah. And so it's like, it makes it terrible for 10 seconds, and then it's good for 2 seconds and terrible for 10 and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just hadn't thought about it for a while. Like when I do think about that experience, I usually think of the DMG, because I remember I had one of those big monstrosities that you would put on that was number one a magnifier, but then number two it had edge lighting, and then number three I think it had like extra speakers on it. So it was just you turn your Game Boy into this huge
monolith of
yeah. But like the Game Boy Advance, I just don't remember, and I got a Game Boy Advance pretty early on.
Yeah.
And I just don't remember struggling that bad with it. Or maybe we were just used to it at that point. But obviously then the Game Boy Advance SP came out, and I do want to pick one of those up, just to compare and contrast. But yeah, so I tried for a good week, but luckily I'd already ordered an IPS screen mod to put it in, because I was like, I can't. I'm glad I tried it. But I am not somebody who's like so dedicated to the original hardware that I was like gonna keep it that way.
Yeah, I had a Game Boy Advance. I bought one at release. I think mine was Arctic White is the one that I got. And,
I got purple.
Yeah, it was nice, but man, as soon as the SPs came out, and this is actually one of the factory IPS ones. It's the 351 model, but. Yeah, this immediately replaced it, and I don't have the original GBA. I have no idea what happened to it over the years. I have my Game Boy Color, and I have my SP, and I don't care where the GBA wound up.
Well, so before I get into the modding that I did on this, have either you guys done a IPS screen mod for a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance?
I have not.
I never have.
Oh, good.
Really?
Yeah, so I have bought one pre-done. Like this GBA SP has a new screen on it, like a laminated screen. But other than that, yeah, I've never done any modding. I've messed around with like building handheld. So there's one called the FP Funny Playing GBC, and so it's actually a FPGA machine, but in a Game Boy third-party shell. So I've like done that kind of stuff, but nothing actually modding an old one. I'm always worried about like soldering or just messing up some of those little things. And so I've never done it.
Yeah. Well, so on the recommendation of one Steve Lynn, who sold me this, he was like, "Oh, go over and check out Retro Game Repair Shop. That's a good place to buy a bunch of the modding kits." And then I was just kind of poking around on YouTube, looking at different versions, and I came across Macho Nacho Tito. He recently, maybe not recently, I think it was like 4 months ago, something like that. Within the past year, he had a video that was like, "Hey, we're at like the end game of Game Boy Advance screens. Like, can these actually ever get better?" And so he was reviewing it was a review and an install guide of the Funny Playing M2 kit. So luckily it was sold on the Retro Game Repair Shop, and that's what I got into to mod my GBA. Like you, Russ, I'm not handy with soldering. I was really worried about ribbon cables. I've definitely broken my fair share of ribbon cables, but watching Tito's instructions, I was like, okay, this seems pretty straightforward. And I got it in, and I took my time. I was able to put it together easy enough. And as of right now, I actually did not solder the touch controls, because it has this little touch sensitive pad that you put towards the top of the screen here. So essentially, if I want to change brightness, I can just tap the frame up here, or tap and hold, and it go through there's different options like color temperature. You can put over real basic shaders and things like that. So like nothing crazy, but it's not perfect. I'm actually getting some what do they call it? Like phantom taps, where like when I tap it, sometimes it actually goes dark before it goes bright. So like it's not perfect. I think I will end up trying the solder route, just because it is fairly simple. But yeah, I think either way, it has been a godsend to have it in here, because like now I can see it, right? And the brightness actually does get pretty bright, especially when I'm playing in the evening. Like I usually have it, I think there's like 14 steps or 15 steps, and I'm usually at like 5 or 6-ish. I haven't taken an official nits reading, which I actually do have a gun that will do, like we use it for laptop testing to measure the brightness. So I should whip that out to see what the official rating is on this. But man, it makes a huge difference having an IPS screen.
So how is the colorization? Because the original one wasn't backlit, right? And so a lot of times the game developers would oversaturate the colors so that way it looked good on that panel. And so then when you emulate, it looks oversaturated. And so you said you had a couple different things you can adjust. Is that one of those things where you can kind of mute the colors a little bit to make it look better?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I actually have it on that mode, which is nice. And I actually have the pixel shader on as well that gives just a real slight grid to it. It feels very natural. Like, sure, it's a modification and it's not the way it's intended, but like to my eyes, like this just feels like I'm playing a Game Boy Advance. So I really appreciate it. And I know there's other versions out there as well, but the Funny Playing was the one that I tried. The only downside is that, or I don't know if it's a downside or an upside, but in order to use their screen, you have to use one of their compatible shells. So you can't use the original shell.
Yeah.
So like some of them were sold out, but luckily the one that I wanted, which was this kind of translucent black, is like it's like a smoky black, and actually really I really like the look of this. So it did come with I did pick up some different buttons, but what I ended up doing was these are the original shoulders and side and buttons. So so it's gray with this like translucent black or smoky black, and man, I think it looks real nice. Nothing overly done, but super sweet. So
yeah,
it turned out good. So some of the screens you actually have to mod. Like you get to use the original shell, but you have to mod it a little bit. Like you have to Dremel down a little specific spot. So yeah, it was I was scared, but I got through it, and it was pretty simple, and I think it turned out good. Like I said, I want to open it back up and try that soldering on those leads so that I can control it with actual button presses.
That's nice. Awesome. Did you use the original rubber membranes from the original or from like the updated ones?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said,
Yeah,
I
got
did
that
get a
original
pack
feel.
of updated stuff, but I was like, I just kind of want to have still some parts of the original hardware in here, which was already in good condition. So like nothing needed to be replaced.
Nice.
Because and then the last modification while I was in there, and I was like, okay, well, I might as well complete the set. I actually ended up getting the funny playing USB-C rechargeable battery.
Oh, very
so
nice. Beautiful.
You have to use a different shell to allow for the USB-C hole through the bottom, but yeah, like it fits in here just perfectly. Yeah, like I had to fiddle with the wires a little bit. It's kind of hard to see, but the wires are kind of tucked off to the side, and the instructions weren't super great about like how you're supposed to do it. Like I was like, okay, well, how do I turn it on? How do I do this thing? I figured it out, and now that it's installed, and I mean, I've been playing. So I did this installation, I think last Wednesday. I think it was the night after we recorded last week's episode. I did this whole mod thing, and I haven't, after charging it once, like I haven't had to recharge it. I don't even know what it's at right now.
Yeah,
but like
it's got to be so
probably
convenient,
gonna last
though.
a long time.
Yeah, I've got so many different charging bricks, because all these different DS and Game Boy Advance things have different ports for some reason. And so I've got this, I don't know about you guys, we got a gallon Ziploc bag, and then I've got all these different plugs, and then I've got like pieces of masking tape that's like put on it, and then I wrote what the system is, and then so I had to dig through that every time I need to charge something. So the idea of just being able to charge at USB-C sounds so convenient.
Yeah, I have a giant box down below me with so I keep all these in a box usually, but then all the chargers are down underneath that, and same kind of thing. They're labeled for which ones they're for. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Even the third party one that I have that has this new nice fancy screen, and it's still got the old charging port, and so it still kind of prevents me from using it as much as I would. So
Yeah. I like that's a whole cottage industry of adding USB-C charging. I actually have seen there are mods for a DS or a DSi, whatever to add USB-C. Like it seems straightforward enough, but once again, then you usually have to modify the shell, do soldering to make sure the leads are hooked up. So like that's where I'm like, how bad do I want it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think if it's a device you use all the time, it can definitely be beneficial. One less charger you have to carry around if you travel with it or whatever else. But case modding and modding in general, definitely not for the faint of heart. This is my original DS. This is a reshelled DS because the hinge gave out on me 5-6 years into it. Even the reshell, it's cracked again right there.
Wow.
Oh, really?
And so it's due for another hinge. But I'll probably do that eventually. And you asked, have I ever done like a screen mod or anything like that? And I'm like, well, I've done reshells, but then I remembered I actually reshelled my original Switch.
Oh, wow.
I should go grab that real quick because that one's an interesting one, and I think people would like to see that. It's a CNC aluminum shell.
Oh, yeah.
And it's gorgeous. So give me 10
Okay,
seconds.
yeah.
I'm going to walk across the office real quick. You ready for the reveal? Luckily, this already has USB-C, but...
Wow.
Ooh. Wow.
Look at that.
Does that actually help with heat dissipation as well?
It makes it warmer on the back, definitely. But the Joy-Cons still remove, but that is, they are hefty now. Like they feel
weapon.
proper.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually have been digging into. I saw people have been making Game Boy macros, which are essentially the bottom half of a DS with the original cartridge. And I saw one. I think it was Tito again, who showed one that it was all aluminum CNC. Like, oh man, that thing was heavy duty.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I've done a few aluminum like shell mods for other cheaper retro handhelds. It's been years, but it's always like it's kind of a mixed bag where it's like, this feels so much more premium, but it's also a lot heavier now. And so it's like, there's always a trade-off.
It like doubled the weight of the Switch. Like the Switch was never like an extraordinarily heavy handheld. But it feels so much more premium now. Like I love the overall feel of this. It even removed a lot of the flex that the original had. So when you have the Joy-Cons connected, it feels solid and you can move it around and whatnot. But this was also quite an expensive mod. I think I paid almost $200 for the shell on top of I mean, it was the same price as the Switch. Also, when I did it, the LCD ribbon cable connector on the motherboard for the Switch came off. So I had to send this to a friend of mine to micro solder the screen connector back onto the motherboard. It wasn't my fault. It was just I undid the latch and the latch just removed. It just yeeted itself from the conversation.
Oh, dang it. So that's crazy. Well, I think you guys should try replacing the screen on a Game Boy Advance, because like
I've got an OG one.
Yeah, like it really does make a huge difference, and it wasn't that hard at all. It's kind of fun to like breathe new life into it, and it still feels like the original, especially when I'm playing games.
I don't know if I like I said, I don't know where my original GBA went, and I don't have one in my collection currently. But I might see what I can do with my Game Boy Color, because this has seen some use.
Yeah, I actually, I guess I haven't dug too much into, like, I know there are screen mods for the DMG and the Game Boy Advance and the SP, but I was also wondering, like, man, is there a Game Boy Micro IPS screen mod? Like, that's
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that for Game Boy Color, I definitely have I have like a second, like a modded one. Someone did it for me. This was early days of my channel. They're like, hey, you could put together a Game Boy. And it was from the Retro Game Repair Shop. They're like, you can basically just put together a Game Boy Color as long as you have that original board. You can get the case, you can get the screen, everything else. And so I bought a cheap one on eBay and then sent it to a guy, and he put it all together. Like I picked out all the stuff, and it's wonderful. I don't have it on me, but it's like a transparent red with black buttons. It's just awesome, with a backlit LCD. And so beautiful.
That's awesome. Well, I have been playing games on this, and so I've got a little bit of a story to share. But yeah, where do you guys have extensive collection of Game Boy Advance games?
I've got probably like 20 or 30 games. A lot of them, I gotta say, are Japanese games, just because like with the other ones, they're region unlocked. And so I'm able to just go, when I'm in Japan, it's like, hey, this thing is like $3 for this game. Like, why wouldn't I pick it up? It's Mario. Like, it doesn't matter if it's if I can read what's going on, and so I have a lot of those. And then for everything else, I've got an EverDrive, basically. So those Mario Advance,
Mario 2 and Mario 4,
Nice.
But the Japanese versions, same kind of thing. Like there are a couple that I didn't have in my collection. Same thing. I've got maybe 20 games or so, but I like going to retro game conventions and whatnot. And you can find the Japanese carts for $5, where the English cart is 30, 40, $50.
Right.
And so I'm not a collector. I don't really have that many things that, this just lives on the shelf. It's valuable. It's whatever else. Except my cartridge of Final Fantasy III. That lives right there. But my games, I like to play the games. And so they don't have to be in perfect condition. I don't care if the label's torn. I just want to play the game.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so surprisingly, I actually only had one Game Boy Advance game in my collection, which was that Golden Sun Lost Age, the second one, whatever.
Second one, yep.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm interested in the EverDrive. Do those work pretty well?
Yeah, I've got one right here. So it's great, and I think it was around $100. I bought this a long time ago, and yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't have any issues with it. It just kind of it lives in my Game Boy Micro, like my little guy. Ooh, I just dropped him, but my little Micro, it just kind of sits in there flush, and so that's kind of how I use it. It's just being able to access every little game on a tiny screen that is just hard to see. But yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah,
okay, well,
I've got a mini super card, and this is a hot piece of garbage. Don't buy this one.
Okay, that's a bummer.
Yeah,
well,
I've been looking at getting one of the EverDrive units.
But between this and the DS, I've been like, okay, you know what? There's a couple games I want to pick up. Like I ended up getting Dual Strike on, or
sure,
sorry,
Advanced Wars,
Advanced Wars, Dual Strike,
Mm-hmm.
and the sequel. What can I think of it?
I don't know. You
whatever.
mentioned it last week. I don't know those games.
So yeah, like I've been
about
picking
that.
up some carts, and I was like, okay, this is cool. But then with the DS specifically, I was like, oh wait. So now I have the Pico, and I also have an SD card in there with the Twilight Menu Plus, which I have a ROM on there, and I have the cart as well. And I was like, oh wait, which version should I actually play through and have the save on? Like, do you guys have that issue where you're like, oh, I have the original cart, but then I also have the ROM somewhere else? Like, would you guys rather have your save on the original cart to take around, or is it just easier to be like, you know what, I'm gonna have everything on one ROM?
If I'm playing on the original hardware, I don't care if it's a flash cart or if it's the original cartridge. I know some people do, but again, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to play the games. I'm not a collector. I'm not, I don't. I get a little nostalgic for cartridge-based games. You slide it in, like it's satisfying. It just is. But like I've got a copy of Minish Cap here. If I had a cartridge that held all of my Game Boy games on them, I'd probably just use the cartridge.
Yeah. So I have I've got a thing called the Save the Hero Builders. It's a cartridge dumper. It's an open source thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a guy named Sonny put it together, but then it's like a build your own thing you can find on GitHub. It'll give you all the instructions, buy this, put it together, solder, all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And so there's a company in Japan, they call it Save the Hero Builders. And so they'll just build it for you and they charge you like $100. And so you just buy this cartridge dumper and it works for like all the Game Boy systems, but then also like Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis. And it basically pulls your cartridge, gets the ROM from it, and then also your save games. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I've used previously is to be able to, if I am going to use a cartridge and I'm like, I want to get that save and play it on emulation or resume it somewhere else, that's kind of the solution I have there for that. But in general, I think I probably, if I'm really going to be focusing on playing through a game, then I would rather do it on emulation just because of all the various handhelds I have and the ability to move my saves over using Sync Thing, which is like the ability to host it on a computer and then move them across a bunch of things. I've done videos about it. And so that's kind of where I am with that, is that I'd rather do the emulation part because it's so convenient to be able to grab that SRM or save file compared to having to pull out my cartridge reader and push on the little buttons to pull my save game.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it in this context too, because traveling for Computex in Taiwan coming up soon, and I was like, okay, well, like, if I bring the original carts, then I have to have some sort of carrying case. Like I just picked up one of those things that like a real basic little carrying case, and I'm like, okay, well then I have to also have this in my bag. Like, am I overthinking it when I could just put everything on that DSpico and and actually just only take that? But then if something happened with the DSpico, then that means all of my saves are gone. I guess I need to look into your solution that you had where you're backing up your saves or whatever. But yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Like the nostalgia in me wants to have it on the original cart, but then the ease of use is like, oh yeah, I should just do everything on the DSpico.
If you've got old cartridges, the Save the Hero thing can be a magical experience. Like for example, I had my old Dragon Warrior NES cartridge from back in the day, and I pulled my old save file off of it and resumed my game from when I was like 9 years old, and that was just like a magical thing.
That's cool.
And I'm playing, and it's so dumb, but like I'm playing my ROM, like my ROM. I'm like, this is my cartridge in software form. I can get that ROM anywhere, right? But this one's mine. And it's the same lines of code, right? But there's a magical piece to it where I'm like, I'm playing my own game here, on software emulation with my own save files. So that little magic is there too, beyond just the like preservation aspect and like not losing your save. There is some magic and fun to being able to pull some of those files too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so the other thing I want to talk about is that I was like, you know what? I do want to have some Game Boy Advance games that are in my collection that really mean something to me. Like I picked up the Game Boy Advance first because of Circle of the Moon. Huge Castlevania fan. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, I want to pick up the 3 Castlevanias. I want to pick up the Advance War games. Max Payne is surprisingly good on GBA. So things like that. So I was kind of looking around on eBay, and I was like, oh man, these prices are, they kind of suck. And then I started coming across some carts that I was like, that price is too good to be true. What? And then you look through the description, and it's like it might have some verbiage of like I think one of them was like this cartridge is for playing, not collecting, or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, well this is probably not real, but you know what? I'll get a couple in. So I actually did buy a couple. I bought the Aria of Sorrow and Harmony of Dissonance off eBay, and I was like, I opened it up and I was like, well, wait, this isn't real? Are you sure this isn't real? I don't know. Like I was looking over the cartridges, and I kind of did some research online and of like how to, spot fake Game Boy Advance cartridges. And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, you can tell because the plastic's real bad. But I'll tell you what, I mean, on here, the plastic like feels just
it's
like
even
normal.
got a tri-wing screw. Like that's a...
Yeah,
well, and so the next step is to open it up, and it has a tri-wing screw. I open it up, and it doesn't have the black blob like it has in Nintendo, and it's the actual like original typeface. Like I'm like, this looks like the actual cart. This is so weird. The only thing that is a little weird is that I can tell the proportions on the face are a little different on the label. But I'm like, okay, well maybe the label was bad, and they just replaced the label. And then I did look up one of the surefire ways to find if something's legit is that they used to stamp a couple numbers into the actual label itself. So if you hold it up and look at the light, you can usually see like a couple numbers kind of thing. And I was like, okay, well, I don't see any numbers on these. But I put them in my Game Boy Advance and they just played fine. Some people are like, oh, the fake ones kind of have problems with saves maybe sometime, but I haven't run into anything. The only way, so at first I was like, are these real? Are they not? I can't quite tell. Like maybe somebody just replaced the label and I'd be okay with that. Except for I did come across somebody that said one of the ways that you can tell is with the analog pocket. So if you plug in a cartridge in the analog pocket and press A to play the cartridge, if it's legit, it will first show you a splash screen of like, oh, hey, here's what it is. Here's, like the little information. Then you hit the run button. I think it's called run. But if it's fake, you plug it in, you hit run cartridge, and it just goes into the game.
And it says game.
Yeah. Well, no, it didn't even, like mine didn't even say game on it. It just, well, so I should back up. One of them played, Aria of Sorrow, played in the analog pocket. The Harmony of Distance, it's a white screen. I can't get it to load. So then I'm like, okay, well, these are definitely fake.
Yeah.
But then I'm also like, does it matter?
Right. Like, are you playing the game and you're like, oh, in the middle of Aria of Sorrow, and then you're like, oh, but the face on the label is a little bit out of proportion. I can't enjoy myself. Like, is that happening to you?
I am of multiple different minds about repro cartridges because I own a number. Like, I don't know what happened to my original Pokemon games, so I bought a full set of the original Game Boy Pokemon repros. These are not the best. They do have tri-wings in the rear, but there's some flashing on the bottom of the cartridge that's just rougher plastic. The plastic is a little bit thinner than a Game Boy game would be, so they've got some flex in them. They run, they play, they do everything that I want them to, and they were like $7 each instead of $170 for Pokemon Yellow or whatever else. But they look good, they play. That's all well and good. I don't like that these are not instantly recognizable as fake, though. Like, you have to look for why they're fake. And some people, that doesn't matter. They're like, well, I know it's fake. I bought it. I want to play the game. That's fine. You know it's fake, but if someone ever finds this in your collection, acquires it, they may not know that it's fake. And so that's where a lot of those fake games start getting integrated into actual collections of retail hardware. And it feels weird. It feels disingenuous even just having the fake cartridge, knowing that it's fake, knowing that someone may mistake it as real in the future. So I like repros where it's obviously a repro. They recolor the shell. They change the label in some way. This one says Nintendo Game Boy TM at the top. It's got the patent pending made in Japan on the back. Like they went through every painstaking process of recreating as well they could, and I'm not a fan of that. I wish there was some automatic tell that this is a repro. I've also done the same thing with SNES cartridges. Like I said, that Final Fantasy III is real. This one is not. But I wanted these for shelf hangers. I wanted them to display on the wall because they make me happy. They make me remember the time that I was sitting in my living room playing on a 13-inch color screen trying to beat Kefka. Like.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I've got so back here I've got like all my NES games, and one of them is a reproduction box. It's the Super Mario 3 box because I'm not paying $100 for a cardboard box.
Exactly.
And but I have my old cartridge, and I just wanted to kind of have it there on display, and so I could pay $15 for this reproduction cardboard box. That's great, and so that's what I have instead. But to the point of flash carts too, I do have one that I really like, and it's this one. I kind of showed it off for a second earlier. So this is Pokemon Unbound. So this is a ROM hack game of I think Leaf Green or Ruby, one of those, and this is just a full-on ROM that most people will play. But I found this at Too Many Games, which is like a gaming convention in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago. Guy was selling it for like $20, and it's ironic because when you start up this game, the first thing it says is you should not have paid for this, right? Like that's just what the ROM says. It's like, hey, this is a fan-made thing. Don't pay for it. Blah blah blah. I'm like, well, I paid for it because I wanted the fun of having a blue transparent cartridge with my Pokemon Unbound that I can just play instead of a ROM. And so this to me doesn't feel like a counterfeit, because this is just basically a physical manifestation of a software hack. And I think that's super cool. But I agree with you, Jeff. It's like the reproduction ones that are so close, it does feel a little bit weird. It's one of those like where if you try to buy Michael Jordan's rookie card, there are so many on eBay, but they're all fakes.
If you got Michael Jackson's rookie card, you went wrong.
Totally different kind of card thing. But I mean, it's the same kind of concept. Is like I actually have one of those. I think my brother sent me one, like a Michael Jordan reproduction, where I was like, hey, I've got Michael Jordan's rookie card, and it's like
now you need to actually print a Michael Jackson rookie card, Russ, just so you can say you have it.
Off the wall, like an off the wall thing. Anyway, weird. And so that's the thing for me is like there's a little bit of like fun in saying I now own this. It's not the real one, but I at least have a physical one too, and I think that's kind of fun too. But it makes it harder for the reseller market and everybody else to have to deal with all those fakes too.
Yeah. So here's my real versus my fake. Wow. The labels are nearly identical. On this one, the Nintendo logo is a little bit bigger on this side.
Yeah. I can see it.
Also, what's interesting is on the top, I don't know how well you can see it, there's like a little blue bar right there. That's actually on the crease, whereas on the fake one, the blue bar only exists above the crease. And so there's a couple like little nuance things that you can tell, but the bolts are correct. They're the hex bolts, not screws. If we flip it over, they've copied the warning label identically. They've embossed Nintendo in the back. If I was just sorting through a box at a collector site, man, this one is darn close. It's a little bit lighter. Like you can tell the plastic's not quite as good, and there's a little bit of like some mold lines. Like just a little bit of a wavy imperfection on the sides where the two halves meet up. But like, man, if you're just at some random convention sorting through bins and you grab that, you're like, yeah, that looks real. Cool. Right. I don't like that. I like it as someone who wants to put this on a shelf and display it, but I don't like it from it's going to be mistaken as a real cartridge eventually.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point because I've been struggling thinking about this. How to feel about it. Like, number one, it's nice to have the cart and, just you throw it in there, it plays. I mean, so far, they've worked perfectly fine, and I get kind of that experience of it, and I didn't have to pay an arm and a leg for it. But I think where it breaks down, Jeff, is where I for me, it's not so much about the look of it. I think it's more like as long as you can like the eBay listings. Like I had to dig in there and like parse some words to be like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here, but you're not explicit about it. Right. That's where I think it's BS, is where you should be very explicit about it and be like, hey, listen, I'm going to be straight up. This is not a real cart, but it is still lovingly crafted, and like it'll still play the game. It's still good quality kind of thing. Yeah. And that's what matters to me, is like not getting duped into something. I hate if people are having that experience. Right. I didn't get duped once again. I intentionally kind of knew going in, like the price was too good to be true. There was a little bit of verbiage in there, and then So,
but you're savvy about that. You know what I mean? Like you actually know what to kind of like that they even exist, that there are reproductions and stuff. So you're able to look at that in the listing and kind of parse through it. But what if somebody like say they're like, oh, my significant other always wanted to play Pokemon Yellow again, and he lost his cartridge, and so I bought him on eBay, and it's going to be his birthday present. He gets it, and it's like, it's a reproduction, like I don't like that aspect either,
Well, I mean, to play devil's avocado for myself, I guess, if they're still having a good time with that experience,
sure,
is that a bad, Yeah, I mean, unless somebody's like, hey, I actually want a real cartridge, and I want it for collecting purposes, and it means a lot to them, like, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I did have an interesting experience one time. I made a video about one of the GBA carts years and years ago on the channel. And I was showing some of my cartridges off, like, hey, the games that I'm going to be testing on this cartridge I actually own. When one of those reviewer things, just to keep yourself safe. If you're playing Breath of the Wild, show a Breath of the Wild cartridge next to the thing that you're emulating, just so Nintendo knows, hey, I paid for this. It's fine. And so one of the things I did was I had Mario Kart Super Circuit. I was playing it on the flash cart, and then I had this sitting on the decks next to me. And the comments went wild going, that's a fake cart. You got duped. This is a fake cartridge. Man. I bought this from GameStop 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is, again, one of those reproductions, or at the time, it was probably like a straight up counterfeit. But this is a fake cartridge.
Dude, how did the comments know just by seeing it in the B-roll?
There's some tell about the label. I think it was the Nintendo seal again, like being a slightly different size.
Oh.
Some people just know. Some people are able to glance at it and go, nope, that's not a real one. And I started looking at it, and this is a fake cartridge. But I bought this from a game store when the SP was new.
Wow.
And so
that's crazy.
Case in point, someone's going to be fooled eventually.
Right. I'd be surprised, just looking through my own cartridge library, I'm sure there are some reproductions in there I don't even know.
Yeah, exactly.
Thankfully, I'm not I don't consider myself a collector. I literally just buy the games to play them and just to have them, and sometimes for like thumbnails and stuff. And that's really about it. I think the only one I can think of is so for the Analog Pocket, one thing I did is I bought like the cheapest Game Boy Advance game I could find, like some horse racing game or something like that. Not even a horse racing game. It was like a
Barbie's horse
dress-up game. Yeah, it was like it was a full-on.
That's an expensive game.
Yeah, and it was probably like $3 on Mercari or something. But I used that to cover the game cartridge slot on my Analog Pocket because I didn't want it exposed to dust all the time. So I'm like, I'm just gonna leave this thing in here all the time.
Really smart.
Because I was using like Open FPGA anyway to just play games off the micro SD card. And so nowadays you can get like 3D printed cases that will go over it, and so that's what I have now. But for a while, I had that horse training or whatever it was game on there.
That's funny. Yeah, it's weird. But once again, it's been fun to kind of go through all this and have new experiences and try to relive my. Hey, this is what midlife crisis looks like, I guess.
Right.
Recollecting all the things that you used to have when you were a kid.
Yeah. So I will add one thing to add is that there are, for Game Boy Advance specifically, there are some excellent emulation experiences out there. So two of them come from Ambernick. So there's this one here. It's called the RG34XX. And this thing, like literally they took a shell of a Game Boy Advance and then repurposed it. There's actually four face buttons here. You can kind of see them right there.
Yep.
And they also added L1 or L2 and R2 buttons on the back too. So you can adjust those. So this is a full-on emulator, right? Like it just runs like a custom operating system, but it's got enough power to play the whole library, no problem. And it's a perfect 3x integer scale of the Game Boy Advance. So it's a 3:2 aspect ratio, and it's backlit, obviously USB and all that stuff, and about $60. So it's like, if you're looking for something like, and you don't mind the whole software emulation thing, then this is a really good solution. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this shell. Like I don't find it very comfortable to play, like the old Game Boy Advance, compared to something like a GBA SP or whatnot, you know. And so thankfully they also have a GBA SP version. Is that a Game Bub? Is that what you have there?
This is the Ambernic 350M.
Okay, yeah. So that's also an excellent option.
Yeah, this is my favorite. And by the way, there's Minish Cap. I have Minish Cap, so this is my favorite. Nice. I love the aluminum shell. And integers. I think this is a 2-to-1 integer scale on this one. But this is my favorite option for this. This is the one that goes in my bag when I travel.
Yeah, no, that's super solid one. That one's made out of metal too. Yeah, that was one of my first handhelds ever. Like when I was first starting the channel, I love that thing.
Yeah.
So Ambernic also has a clamshell version. They call this the 34XXSP. So same screen as that other one, so 3x integer scale, but with a clamshell. Ironically, it has 2 analog sticks on it, which you're not going to need for Game Boy Advance at all. But same custom firmware and stuff. And this one is kind of a neat color. This one's my favorite because it has it basically looks like a Pikachu. You know,
that's adorable. I love that.
And so, so this is probably one of my favorite ways to play Game Boy Advance. I find this more comfortable than the original shell. For me, it's just
you're crazy, man.
It's weirdly angular for me. I don't know.
Yeah, but at least it's wide. Like my fingers only barely touch each other, but on the taller ones, like I'm at, even the analog pocket, even though it's thicker and chunkier, like I just hate that crisscross of my fingers around the back.
I've gotten used to it over the years.
I mean, I can do an SP.
Oh, you curl?
That's okay. Oh, yeah, I curl.
I can't curl, man. Yeah. I can't do it. I like
even on a mouse on a claw grip, so it just translates so well.
The last thing I want to mention before we wrap it up here is that I was curious to see the panel quality for this funny playing that I've put in the Game Boy Advance versus the analog pocket. And so I actually just loaded the ROM for one of the games on both and just kind of was comparing and contrasting. And unfortunately, I totally forgot that you don't really have that many shader options when you're playing a native game on the analog pocket. Like I couldn't really, I mean, like there are a couple things you can change, like the color scheme and things like that. But for the most part, I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. I wanted to have some sort of options for shaders and on that screen, it definitely pops like it is very vibrant, like you were talking about earlier. So like it's weird. I actually I prefer the screen on the funny playing because I have some more options, but that screen is technically better. And it's in like an actual integer scale, or what is the scale?
It's not integer scaled. It's close.
Is it not?
It's very close, but it's not. I don't think it's integer scaled because it's like a 1440p panel. It's a 10x of the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, but I don't think it's a Game Boy Advance integer scale. I'd have to look it up.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely sharper and crisper, and you can tell. Almost to its detriment. I really like to have scan lines on now, and so like I typically go that way. So like it was almost like too sharp, too crisp.
Yeah. So there's an excellent utility called Console to Screen, and the website it's made by a guy named Sean Inman. So he is a developer for like Playdate, and he made a couple custom operating systems. Anyway, if you just Google Console to Screen, it comes up with this tool, and you can then pull up the system, and then also most retro handhelds are on there, or you can put the dimensions in there. So Game Boy Advance to Analog Pocket is a 6.7x scale, so it's not an integer scale. Close, but and honestly, once you get to like 6x scale, like you can't see the difference, unless you got a microscope. And so it looks beautiful on there, but yeah. Oh, got another additional guest.
Had a guest walk in.
Is the guest an appreciator of handhelds as well?
I think so. Yeah. he definitely watches me play the computer. Especially likes Crab Champions. So whenever I'm playing Crab Champions, he's usually sitting right next to me.
Nice. Okay, well, yeah, that's the analog or the Game Boy Advance adventures. Should check in. That's what's been in my pocket. So I'm glad we were able to have a chance to dive deeper into it. And
wonderful system.
Continue to report back as we have new experiences. But at this point, we need to say goodbye to Jeff. And I appreciate you coming on the show, man. You're our first time that we're having 3 guests or 3 people on the same show.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
cool. Yeah. Well, my
awesome
alarm
having you,
clock
Jeff.
just
This
went
is
off,
great.
so it's
yeah, perfect timing. So
exactly.
anyway, thanks, Jeff. And yeah, we'll catch everyone on the other side of the ad break.
Excellent.
And we're back. Thanks again for Jeff for popping by. If you want to go check out his work, go over Craft Computing on YouTube. Jeff's an awesome guy. Like, I always think of him as the home lab guru. So if you're looking at that kind of stuff, it's awesome. And then he's nerdy like us. Obviously, he tries to cover a little of everything. So his channel's kind of a nice little potpourri.
Yeah, I love watching
technology.
his stuff. It's he does a lot of handheld reviews, so I always check those out. But then sometimes he's just got an interesting concept that I like to watch, and it's always fun too because he craft computing comes from the fact that he drinks a beer while he's doing his video, and then at the end of it is he goes back in time and says as he's opening it, it describes the beer, where he got it from and how it tastes and stuff.
Yeah,
but you get to watch the beer get smaller as you're because he doesn't actually talk about it, but all of a sudden it's he must have had a drink between takes right there, and so that's one of my other favorite Easter eggs is watching how he drinks, which is funny.
Well, and actually, we did ask him when he first hopped on, hey, are you committed to the bit? Because it's 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Are you going to drink on this show? But he's like, no, I'm not an alcoholic. He just really likes beer.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get into Buyer's Corner. We got some really good questions, a lot of meat on these bones. So let's hop in here. The first one comes in from a friend of the show called Great Mighty Daddy. I have the original 2003 Z1 Extreme ROG Ally. Shortly after getting it, I replaced the 512 gig SSD to a 2 terabyte SSD. Ooh, nice. All the storage you can get. Real quick side note before we go with the question. I have also put 2 terabytes in various systems, but I actually find I have a hard time even filling up 2 terabytes. Have you found that?
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I had an Ally X, and I think I put a 4 terabyte in it, because you can put the full thing in there. And I was like, what am I going to do with all of this? And I took it out because I was like, I don't need all of this. By the way, you also said 2003 ROG Ally, just to clarify, 2023. It's not.
Oh my goodness.
20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would love to see
Going
a
back in
2003
time.
ROG Ally and how that looked. But yeah.
That would have been hilarious. Yeah, sorry. Okay, continuing with the question. I'm interested in a battery replacement, but I don't want to cut or Dremel anything. Are there any battery upgrades that would still fit in the Ally form factor that have higher capacity that I could just straight up replace without making any modification to the unit? Now, I know, Rusty, you have a little story to tell on this.
So JSOX, they make a battery replacement kit, but it requires an additional back shell. And I've been interested in this forever. I mean, my number one complaint always about the original Ally was the battery size, 40 watt hours. I'm like, this is just anemic, especially because you can push the Z1 Extreme to a higher TDP than the Steam Deck. And so it just eats the battery even faster if you're trying to push it, which will give you slightly better performance than the Steam Deck in many cases. And so it always felt very anemic as a result, even though it was the same battery size as the original Steam Deck. And so I used to always be like, hey, when are you going to have it in stock? Send it over to me. I even saw them at CES one year. I'm like, can you send me this thing? And turns out they can't because of their shipping provider and Hawaii's restrictions when it comes to sending batteries. So unfortunately, I never got one in my hands. I couldn't buy one and I couldn't get the company to send one either. And so I never got to do that mod, but I think you did, right?
I have, yes, because I kind of was in that same boat. I don't remember exactly when I got it, but it was after the ROG Ally X, and I was like, okay, well, how much could you soup up an original Ally to try to meet that ROG Ally X, which had a bigger battery, it had quieter fans, a couple other small upgrades. It was essentially an ROG Ally, but just more refined, right? Yeah. So I did get this in. I'm looking at the price right now. It's listed as $90, but it's on sale right now as of the time we're recording this for $80. It's 65 watt hour, so doesn't quite get you up to the Ally X, which I think was 80 watt hour,
yeah,
right?
It was 80. Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, the only real downside is the fact that you have to swap out the back plate because it does need just a little bit more room. Like in my hand, it did not feel that different when I put it on. So like it was not really that big of a change. It's not like you're expanding the depth of the ROG Ally considerably. But yeah, they have an extra shell, and from what I remember, I actually never did a video on it. I don't remember the specifics of installing it, but it was fairly easy. Like I've done modifications to like the Steam Deck. I remember the original Steam Deck I had repasted and switched out the stock fan and things like that. I would actually call that a little bit more complicated than what I remember of the ROG Ally battery upgrade. It was pretty straightforward. I would say really the only downside is like the instructions are, not the most clear thing,
right? as
we've seen many times with companies like this, but like I was able to get it done, and yeah, like I mean, it definitely makes a difference. You can tell that you have more battery to mess around with. So I would have no problem recommending this to you.
It looks like too. Yeah, go ahead.
Once again, you don't need a Dremel. You don't need to cut anything. This is a easy like that.
So I'm looking at the kit, and in addition to just the battery and the back plate, it's got they put the tools in there. So it's got like rubber gloves and a screwdriver and the screws and all that, and as well as like a guitar pick and stuff to get the case open. But it also has an additional like heatsink backplate to it. So they call it a thermal upgrade kit as well. So I'm assuming because they got that extra space, they're like, let's give it a bigger backplate too. So that might help you with CPU temperatures and stuff as well.
Yeah, once again, I don't have anything specific on hand for testing. I do remember I kind of like, that's what it was. So I did a video early on where I changed out the stock thermal pad for one of the Honeywell PTM phase change, whatever kind of things, and like I didn't really see a change. So I think that's why I didn't do any like side-by-side testing, because my testing was already kind of tainted by having changed out the stock. So I can't really speak to that at all. So diminishing returns on that. If anything, I would say just that would be maybe like a nice addition or side benefit of it. You're buying it for the battery upgrade, and for that, I have no problem recommending that.
Nice, good, yeah, and it's this is definitely a mod I would still even do today if I could get my freaking hands on it. Maybe I just need to, next time I'm on the mainland, like have it sent to my parents or something. I should have done that when I visited them over spring break. It's like, hey, mail it to this place, which you can get it, and then I'll just like take it over in my luggage or something. And I don't know if TSA
what about
will be happy
when we're in
that.
Taiwan?
Yeah, that's a good.
I wonder if there's anywhere that sells it over there. Or if
honestly, when I talked to them at CES, they were like, do we have any right now that we can just give you? And they're like, oh, we don't. So maybe I'll hit them up with an email if I end up going over there. So,
yeah. Okay. Next question comes in from friend of the show, Huskers30. Hey guys, big fan of the show and been a follower of Retro Game Core for a few years now. I'm a new father with a 2-year-old son and a daughter on the way in less than a month. Hey. Congratulations.
That's fun. Awesome.
Sometimes the only gaming time I can get is at work over my lunch break. Yep, I know how that is. I had the Miyoo Flip V2, which was great because it had super quiet controls and could play some 64 Dreamcast PSP games. So I could play a lot of retro games and not feel like I am bothering anyone else with the noise in my office. The USB-C charging port recently broke, so now I'm looking for a new device. The Do you guys have any recommendations for one that is very quiet, small, and can play 64 Dreamcast PSP? The clamshell form factor was a plus, but not needed. Keep up the great work, and I hope you find a buried treasure soon. Yeah, no, actually, that's a good thing. We should incorporate it into the show that we're on expedition,
right.
Not just, maybe there's an end in sight. We're looking for buried treasure.
I road to El Dorado.
Yeah. So real quick, the first question I have, which wasn't the question they were asking, but do you know how easy it is to fix the USB-C charging port on the Miu Flip V2? Like, do you think that would be something he should look at first?
So they could contact Miu and get a new board. You know what I mean? And so just like a full-on board replacement. I think that's probably the easiest way to go, rather than trying to figure out the soldering with that USB-C port and putting a new thing and making sure it's working to spec and stuff. I think that it might just be easier to get that board and then drop in replacement. Everything else, like the board itself comes out, you'll have to reattach the ribbon cable, but that's just a little clip, so that might be a pretty easy way to do it if they sell it to you at a reasonable price. I wouldn't pay more than like $20-$30 for that, because this device on its own you can buy for about $60-$70 right now. So I would think that the board, you should be able to get it at that price point. If you can't, then maybe not worth it.
Either way might be kind of a fun, like I said, I've been having fun opening up and tinkering with stuff. Right. So maybe that's kind of a fun little side thing, but also maybe you don't have the time or you don't really care.
Yeah.
So
you got a 2-year-old running around. It may not be.
I wanted to throw it out there just in case that was an option.
Right. So the chipset on the Miu Flip 2 version 2 is the ROG chip RK3566. So as he mentioned, it can do a good, he said, some Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, PSP, and that's about right. It's not equipped to be able to play all those systems and all those games, but if you're happy with that performance, then for lightweight games it should be fine. The option I'm thinking about, non-clamshell, would be that, and focusing on the quiet buttons part, would be a device I just reviewed earlier this week or last week. It's called the Mini Lung Pocket 1. It's a little white handheld. You can get it in gray as well. It's about $80 right now, and some of the quietest buttons I've ever seen. Like the shoulders, the triggers, the face buttons are just immaculate. Like such a cut above what you would expect at that price point. Better than like a Retroid device, which is hundreds of dollars. My first thought was, the Retroid Pocket version, or Retroid Pocket 4, which is still being sold, has pretty good smaller size and pretty good quiet buttons, but they're nothing like that Mini Lung. And so that's kind of like where I first thought about. The only issue with that one is, one, it's got the same chipset as the Miu Flip. So same performance as you're expecting, but no custom software just yet as of making this video, or as of recording this podcast. And so that's the biggest thing, is that like the stock firmware kind of sucks and it's just not fun to navigate. But as soon as I released my video, I got a text from one of the custom firmware developers, and he was like, dang it, Russ, you made me buy this thing. And so he bought one, and he's going to probably port it over. And so it's just a matter of time, I think. I think once word gets out of how nice this device feels and how nice the screen is, it's a really awesome screen too. 960 by 720 resolution with a 4x3 screen. I think it's 4 inches. It's a really nice size and everything. I think once word gets out, there will be more people involved in making software for it. So it's just a matter of time, I would say. But that's kind of like the first idea I had. And then if you wanted to upgrade your performance and make sure that you can play all those Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, PSP games, then I think the Retroid Pocket 4 or 4 Pro would probably be your best bet in that regard. It's about $150 right now. They still sell it on Retroid's website. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but neither of these are clamshells, So I would say, like if you are looking for clamshell, there really isn't anything performance-wise until you get to like the Thor, and that's $300 plus you're waiting 3 months for it. Your kid will be walking by then. Your daughter's on the way. So
they don't mention a price. So
right.
maybe the Thor is worth the upgrade because how much of an upgrade over that chip is it?
Oh, it's huge. You're able to play the Switch games on that thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're going to play everything on it. But I don't know if they want to go that route. The other thing I was thinking about is like, man, the Miu Flip version 2, it's got all these hinge issues. So it's always been one that I'm a little bit cautious about recommending. But you can play that one-handed. And if you got a baby and you're like, you're feeding the baby and whatnot, or, just kind of rocking it in those late nights, whatever, a lot of people, new dads, will talk about how having a one-handed handheld is like super important, And so that's another thing to think about with that Miyoo Flip version 2, is that you could just kind of theoretically play like an RPG with one hand while doing something else, in those late hours. It's been so long for me. My youngest is 10 years old now, so I don't even remember what it was like. But yeah, I feel like that's a factor as well. So yeah, I guess to put it all together, it would be see if you can get that Miyoo Flip board replaced, and then do that if you're up for it. Or else something like that Mini Lung for about $80, or the Retroid Pocket 4 or 4 Pro for around 150-ish.
Are either of those one-handable?
No, only the Miyoo Flip, I would say. You can definitely go smaller, but performance wise, it's just hard to play those systems with something that's pocketable. We don't really have many options there. Got
it. All right, cool. I will leave a link in the description to Russ's recent video if you haven't seen it already. It sounds like they've probably already seen it. So
yeah,
we'll see. All right, so the last Buyer's Corner question comes in from friend of the show, Leo Star and Fire, I guess is how you said that. Is actually like I had to reformat it a little bit just to kind of get the gist of it here. But they say my budget is based around $570. I live in South Korea and I essentially have two options for a handheld. Number one is a brand new Legion Go S with the Z2 Go chipset, or a used ROG Ally X or a Legion Go 1. So that's a little bit more expensive in their price range, but they're kind of looking between those two. Follow up, I do hope to expand to an eGPU in the future. I cannot really save up or wait to buy something more powerful, so my choice feels like a slightly lower spec but brand new full warranty and likely longer support versus higher specs, used, no warranty, and a market that fluctuates both in price and availability. Also, I know I am dropping performance more, but I'd be getting the Windows 11 version and not scared to dual boot SteamOS on whatever device. I've also watched a ton of videos. FSR is not like an issue for them. They don't seem to want to play a ton of AAA games. Yeah. Oh, and like, I guess last point is that they don't really care too much about battery life because they always have an option to get AC power. So what do you think, Russ? This is, I feel like we've answered a form of this question since the dawn of this podcast, because I think a lot of people are in that situation.
No, it's a great question.
Kind of trying to figure out what to do. So
yeah. No, I like these like kind of existential questions every week, just kind of like, hey, where would you be with that? And I think it really does come down to the fact that they're even thinking about like long-term care and warranty and stuff like that. And it obviously is probably an important factor to them. And so there is that peace of mind that comes with that Legion Go S. But that Z2 Go chip is going to be fairly limiting. The fact that they said that they would be open to an eGPU or want to expand to that in the future. So all three of these devices that they're looking at, the Ally X, Legion Go 1, and the Legion Go S, they all have USB 4. So you could use an eGPU with a Thunderbolt connection like that. So all those are kind of within the realm of possible when it comes to that. And thankfully, CPU is not the big bottleneck with a lot of these. It's going to be the GPU performance. And so putting any of them in an eGPU is probably going to be a great time. So for me, it's just going to come back down to like how it feels in terms of the warranty situation. Like how willing are you to risk it with a used device? For me personally, if I had to pick one of these three, I would probably go with the Ally X, just in my own kind of background. That Legion Go 1 has always been a little too big for me. I don't think it's been big for you, Adam, but like it's just a little too big for me. So I would go with the Ally X personally, and take that risk. As far as the dual booting part, I feel like all three of them would be great choices. You can always just, you don't have to get the Windows version of the Legion Go S to put Windows on it. You could always just put Windows on the cheaper one too if you wanted, and then expand the storage or dual boot, however you wanted to do that too. If it doesn't have official SteamOS support like the Ally X and the Legion Go 1, then Bazzite works wonderful on it. And once you got it loaded up, you can't really tell a difference between them. And so that's always a factor to think about. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth. If it was me talking, I would say, yeah, go with the used one, take that risk. But that's me who's willing to do that. For this person, the first thing they mentioned was the idea that the warranty is kind of important. And so I feel like maybe the Legion Go S would give them that peace of mind. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, out of all these three, I would not pick the Legion Go 1. And it's not the size for me, it was the ergonomics. I was not a big fan of that device, so that's not my pick. I should say the only way I think I would recommend it for somebody is if they really wanted to have that form factor, really liked having a tablet that maybe they could use for something else, detaching the controllers, using the FPS mode thing. If you're interested in that, cool, go for it. But for me, none of those are a buying point for me. So really, then it becomes the Legion Go S or the ROG X, Ally X. And that's a hard one because I love the bigger screen on the Legion Go S, better ergonomics, newer chipset, sure, but also I don't think that matters that much. But the ROG Ally X, you're definitely going to get more native performance off of it. But it's a smaller screen. Ergonomics, while aren't bad for me, it's definitely not up to the same as the Legion Go S. So yeah, I think if the fact that you're already kind of debating between those two means that you don't really care about screen size. So if you take that out of the equation, then you talk about native performance, and yeah, I mean, yes, you can get a lot done with that Z2 Go. I'm not worried about support, anything like that. But yeah, it's definitely limiting. And I know you say you're probably not going to get too much of a bottleneck with an eGPU, but I actually don't know. I kind of would want to test that, honestly. Now I'm thinking okay, at some degree you're going to start getting a bottleneck, and I actually think you would hit that quicker on the Z2 Go than the Ally X. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think the support stuff, I mean, while it's nice, I guess I don't know what the options are for the used market. They don't really say, and I'm just not familiar with the South Korean market because, like we say, over here in the US, you can get an open box Best Buy one, which is technically used, right? But you get that benefit of having Best Buy kind of, a little bit of peace of mind on that kind of thing. So it's used, but it's one of the best ways you can kind of stay protected, or through other companies, right? I mean, I don't think this happens, but if you were to, maybe there's a game shop that you can buy their own protection plan from versus, buying it on eBay and just kind of rolling the dice. So sorry, unfortunately, I just don't know what it's like buying stuff over in South Korea. But if you're talking about just buying some person's ROG Ally X, that does feel like a crapshoot. So
right.
I don't know, that is hard. That is hard.
And it's the biggest thing for me is that it's really going to come down to that form factor and that peace of mind with it, because the software side, I just, between having the Xbox mode and having the ability to run SteamOS and whatnot, or a SteamOS-like experience, you're going to be able to get that with both. It just takes a little bit of digging to figure out for your system what is the recommended way of going about it. And even the Bazzite tutorial for, say, if you did go with the Ally X, they've got a whole page on how to set up dual booting between Windows and Bazzite. So all that's pretty easy. And then you can always sign up for the early adopter program on the Xbox side so that you can get the Xbox mode early. And so you can always do stuff like that too. So.
Yeah, I think I would probably default to the Ally X and try to really find a good situation. maybe one that has some sort of, protection based in it. And I know that might cost a little bit of extra. Or if you're like, hey, this seems like a reputable kind of buying decision, or it's like, certified, like that it got some sort of, not warranty, but when they refurbish, there we go. Like if some sort of refurbish situation, that would be nice. But if you can't find anything you just don't feel comfortable with, then yeah, I mean the Legion Go S is not a bad choice. This is a hard choice, I should say. There's no knock out of the park here. I think that's what I would do. I would search for a while for an ROG Ally X, see if there's a good situation. If I'm not comfortable with any of that stuff, then I would have no problem just picking up a Legion Go S.
Yeah, no, I think it's good stuff.
Yeah, whatever you do, let us know. Try to maybe follow up on Discord or hit us up on social media or something, because I'm curious. I'm also curious on what kind of eGPU you're looking to get in the future. I've been knee deep into eGPU land lately, and it's exciting. There's some fun stuff out there, and I'm curious to see what people are picking up. So that's it for Buyer's Corner. So let's get over to one Q&A. We have a lot of good questions out there. I'm not saying, sorry if we're not answering stuff immediately, but we're trying to balance, not having too long of a show with answering people's questions. But there is one I want to get to real quick, which I think is an interesting one that not only do I think we talk about now, but maybe we revisit it in the future. So this one comes in from Benjamin. Said, Adam mentioned visiting Taiwan soon. I'm also visiting Taiwan later in the year, and I'm wondering if there's any little shops or the like that are going to be particularly interesting for handhelds, whether that's retro emulation, aftermarket official handhelds, even PC handhelds, etc. Feels like buying electronics while in Taiwan just makes sense for some reason. So hey, congratulations, Benjamin, for your trip to Taiwan. I don't know if you've been there or not, but man, I love Taiwan. I've been there a handful of times now, and each time it just is magical, for sure. And you've been before, right, Russ?
I have not, actually. That's one of the few places.
I thought you did.
No, I've never been to Taiwan.
Japan. Okay, it's Japan.
Yeah, I've been to Japan a lot, but yeah, unfortunately, never been to Taiwan. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, to answer the question specifically, I get the sentiment that buying electronics in Taiwan just makes sense. I feel that too, and it's a different culture over there when it comes to electronics. Like, I feel like a lot of US based people just want something that works, right? Like, I feel like that's why Apple is just so popular in the US. People are like, oh, I don't want to have to think about it. I just want it to work. Where when I visited Taiwan, and I've heard this is the same in other Asian cultures as well, is that they're a lot more into tinkering and working with things and understanding how something works and trying to get the most out of something. So like electronics over there and computers just is approached differently. It's hard to describe. I don't think I'm doing a good job here, but so as a little anecdote, I remember walking by an Apple store in a very popular part of Taipei, and it was crickets, empty. And I was just like, oh, that's crazy. Usually when you walk by one of those in the US, like, it's just, it's nuts in there. But
right.
people just have a way more personal relationship with electronics in my mind. So, and it just gels more with me. So yes, I think you're spot on there. The only bummer that I felt every time I've gone there is that it's not like you're finding a deal. Like, we live in such a globalized economy now that, like, I can't think of anything that I saw over there that I was like, oh wow, I just cannot get this in the US. I mean, like, sure, there's some things like maybe that wasn't released, in the US markets, that, maybe some like games and things like that. But there was no big piece of electronics that I was like, I need to get my hands on, and I can't just buy it from somebody on eBay or, I unfortunately have never found anything that just was like a super exciting find like that. unfortunately. And I know you said you've kind of had a situation like that in Japan as well.
Yeah, I think that with the more like kind of modern internet, like plugged in culture, like it's harder to find deals nowadays, So I didn't do a lot of electronic shopping in Japan back when I was in the service, but it was 25 years ago I was going there and stuff. And I feel like it's kind of a different world now, like trying to shop around. People know what they have. And so when you go into a store and whatnot, the prices are kind of not that great of a deal. The best way to find a deal often is still like like the whole garage sale idea where you just find somebody who doesn't know what they have and you can just get it for cheap, but that's so rare nowadays. And a lot of times you can even find it in Japan, they use Yahoo auctions a lot. So that's a way that you can get things pretty cheap. But even then, people are more savvy about what something's worth because they can use Yahoo auctions to see what other auctions have been sold at. And so it is kind of hard. My best example for this is Singapore, actually. So I traveled there a lot about 25 years ago when I was first in the Navy. And I don't know if I mentioned before, I was an Indonesian translator. And so that was one of my like points of entry, like getting on a ship and doing my deployments and stuff was from Singapore. So I probably went there a dozen times over the course of a couple of years. And that was like the wild, wild west back then. Like I remember I was looking for, of all things, it was really popular here were mini disc players in Hawaii. Like that was a big thing. Like people wanted mini discs and mini disc players. They would do like concert recordings, it was like good quality and stuff. And so I was on the hunt for a good mini disc player back in like 2001, 2002 in Singapore. And I went all through all these shops and it was just so cool walking through. And yeah, it was just kind of the wild, wild west where, a lot of haggling and just people that were interested in electronics and having a lot of fun with it. My wife and I went back to Singapore maybe 2 or 3 years ago and totally different ball game now. Like there's just all big box stores and, it's like a lot of my favorite shops. I'm like, oh, I remember this place on this street and I go there and it's like a Prada now, like it's just like totally different. And so, unfortunately, yeah, I feel like that kind of magicalness of like finding these oases of electronics kind of havens, including Taiwan, is probably just a bit of a thing of the past, unfortunately, where things we're just in a global economy now and things are just kind of the same all over, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I would temper your expectations a little bit on finding something that either one is a heavily discounted or two, something that you just have never seen before or can't get anywhere else. But on the flip side, though, that doesn't mean it's not worth it, because I think the number one reason to do it is the experience. There is a very popular electronics market area that I'm sure you probably have already heard about, called Gonghua. That's like, it's all centered around this huge tower, which has different levels of electronics. It's very big box store kind of feel to it. But then next to it is the old center, and you go in there, and I think it's like 4 or 5 floors, and it's literally just like shops like that are kind of behind a garage door kind of thing, and it's everything from really nice little setups of PC components, things like that, to people selling games or DVDs. Like there's even some like official reseller shops there, like Sennheiser, things like that.
Wow.
But then there's also just shops of people who literally are selling old laptop batteries. Oh, hey, you need an old ThinkPad battery or an old Dell Experion battery or like it's crazy. I mean, there's one specifically that just feels like they opened up the garage door in the morning and just everything just kind of spilled out. So it feels like this market that you can just explore and poke around and just get a vibe, and maybe you'll find something interesting, maybe you won't, but either way the experience is awesome when it comes to that. And then you go around in the rest of the block, and there's just like third-party reseller shops. There's so many signs that are just like Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, Asus, Gigabyte, MSI, Lenovo, Legion, right. Like it just, and these are all third-party resellers, so it's not like there's a official market there, and it's usually the same thing over and over again of like, they've got the same laptop, but maybe it's $10 cheaper in this one, or you can haggle or something like that. But once again, I'm not there to buy anything. It's just more like it's the experience, and it just, you can't find somewhere like that in the I've never found somewhere like that in the US, where a whole like city block is just nothing but electronics and cool nerd stuff, and just people enjoying it and getting into it. And there's shops where literally people are just selling little like components, like LED lights, transistors. There's this one area where you actually have to go down. So I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but you'll know it if you find there's an old camera shop. So there's stairs to go up to a camera shop, or you walk down, and there's 2 levels underground that like have like really, they seem kind of sketchy, some of them, but some of them it's just fun to poke around. And you'll just go in there and be like, oh wow, I had no idea there was 200 different versions of this capacitor. And like people are just trying to tinker and buy stuff. And it's fun. I think the other thing, and there's plenty of other little shops that you can get around as well. Not to mention a lot of these companies that we know, like MSI, Gigabyte, Asus, they have their headquarters there. So like they do have some sort of presence. And I think, who is it? Is it Cooler Master? I can't remember. One of those other computer companies like actually has like a little show floor that you can go into. It's like open to the public. So there's different experiences that you can do with that. But if you're looking for video games specifically, the Gonghua area like definitely has gaming, but one of the retro game shops that I've heard a lot about, and I actually haven't been to, and I'm hoping to go to this year, is inside one of the train stations. And now I'm blanking on which train station it is, but and what the name of the shop is. So I gotta look it up real quick.
While you're looking that up, though, I will say that a similar experience, like going to like Akihabara in Japan, in Tokyo. It's a little district, like electronics district, and that one it's really cool because you walk around and there are like those big shops, but then there's like those little boutique, like bodega kind of shops. And they'll have like they're selling like cables. You need a cable like cut or whatever, and they'll make like electronic cables and stuff. Like that kind of stuff is still there. It's kind of like the old school style of Akihabara. A lot of it's now a little bit more corporate, but there's still those pockets, which is really awesome to find. And the other aspect too, it's really important when you're doing like retro game shopping and stuff, is to kind of think in the mindset of like that, wherever you are, and what they find important and what they don't, because the things that they don't value are the things that are going to have a lower price point, and that's where you're going to get your deal. And so my favorite example is there's a shop there's 2 in Tokyo called Super Potato, and it's like this really kind of famous, well-known retro game like reseller shop. And you can go in there and you pay $1,000 for one cartridge or whatever, some rare thing, Snow Brothers or whatever. But the things that they don't value are actually still a good price. And so I remember getting Tecmo Super Bowl. So a game that is not super popular in Japan because it's obviously American football, but they had a Famicom cartridge for it, and I got it for $7. And that's a good price. The US cartridge for that is usually around $50, $60 in good condition. And so to get that for $7, obviously in Japanese, so it's like a totally different gaming experience. You need to have a Famicom as well. But just the idea of getting one of my favorite games of all time for $7 in a foreign cartridge format was like super awesome. And so there are deals still to be found. And that was at Super Potato, a place known for being super overpriced. So it's possible.
That's awesome. So unfortunately, I should have done this beforehand. I'm sorry, I can't quickly find it on Google Maps. I think I know what it is, but I don't know specifically. So I will put a link in the description to the video game store. I just need to, do a little bit more research. But yeah, like it's inside of a train station, which, or I shouldn't say train, like a metro, like they have a very complex. It's what is it called? It's MRT. Mm-hmm. So essentially, like this one is attached to it's the main station, and it's attached to this really long mall system. So with mall shops, all kind of stuff. But there's this one vintage game store in there that supposedly is like a really good store, and it's fun to go to. So I want to go to this year for sure. So yeah, and like I said, I think what we can do is maybe visit this after I go to Taipei for Computex, and then to talk about maybe a new experience I found or something like that. So
I don't think I've said it publicly, but I am hoping to go to Computex this year. Some things are in the works, and I don't want to say I will be there, but it looks kind of likely. And so I've got I've been planning it for years now, is the idea of going to Computex in Taiwan and then maybe just jumping over to Shenzhen for a little bit and like hanging out and maybe trying to get inside of like the Ambernick factory or something, And so that's kind of something I've been planning for years. And this year might be the year. It's coming close. I've only got about a month and a half to really finalize everything. So maybe next year. But hopefully, if things work out, Adam and I will have like a, in-person episode in Taiwan at some point, and we can maybe do some retro game hunting then.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
We'll
so
don't tell anyone yet. We're gonna keep this between us and the Expedition Handheld here. Just me and Adam and the few thousand of you guys. But I'm hoping to be there as well. So we'll see.
Also, if there's anyone listening who is based in Taipei or knows of some cool places that we should visit, please leave it down in the comments.
Yeah.
Or you can pop over to the Full Nerd Discord. There's a link down in the description. You can go in there. We have a Handhelds channel. We have a Expedition Handheld questions channel. That's where you can put your questions for either buying advice or just random general questions like this. Maybe go over there and give us some suggestions, because I'm always looking for suggestions, places to check out. I've definitely heard that there is a lot more deals and a lot more interesting finds to find outside of the city. But the problem is, like, I'm usually in the city for Computex, and unfortunately, I haven't been outside Taipei specifically. So one of these days, I want to get outside and do some fun hunting.
Yeah,
So,
super cool. Yeah, it's same thing in Tokyo. It's like if you're in Tokyo, you're not going to find good deals. Get outside of there, and then you can find some good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we should wrap it up, Russ. We've been going on long. Once again, thanks for Jeff for stopping by. Check out Craft Computing over on YouTube. If you want to watch this video, it releases every Saturday on the Full Nerd Network YouTube channel, the Full Nerd Network on YouTube, but then you can also get the video version on Spotify as well. We're over there for the handful of people watching us over on Spotify. Appreciate that. But the audio version continues to be anywhere that you can find RSS feeds. Russ, you have a weekly newsletter that I appreciate getting in my inbox just to see what you've been up to. And I did notice you wrote a couple extra words in this last one, and I loved it.
I even asked for feedback, and I said, "Hey, let me know, what you guys are thinking about this newsletter." And the only feedback I got was that it needs to be longer. Like, that's the only thing I heard. So I don't know. Maybe I'll add a couple hundred more words. We'll see.
Keep going until somebody's like, "All right, Russ, this is way too long, bro.
Too much Russ."
Yeah. Okay, I can't take these too many snacks and drinks. It's ruining me. My doctor says I really need to cut back. Anyway, if you want to check out some other podcasts, I host the Full Nerd podcast, which is about DIY desktop PC building, which is super fun. Or I am co-host of a podcast called Dual Boot Diaries, where I've been learning to use Linux in my daily life, which has been a fun adventure. Well, sometimes fun, sometimes not. We show warts and all of the experience. And then, of course, Retro Game Core over on YouTube. I think everyone should be subscribed to that anyway. But what do you got cooking? You kind of mentioned, you're gonna do a little bit of the FEX stuff. But
I'm gonna try to get Steam running on some handhelds and maybe make a quick video about that. Other than that, I got a couple guide ideas coming out. Like, let me do a better streaming guide, like how to stream from your PC to your handheld. I think that might be one of my upcoming guides.
I would love that.
Yeah, and then I also want to, I don't know if you saw, but they announced like a new Neo Geo console yesterday.
Yes,
so it's like hundreds of dollars, but it got me thinking, like, man, I love the Neo Geo. And so I'm like, maybe I should make a video about like my favorite games. And so I think that might be.
Do you have one
too? Oh gosh, no. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
That's like a rich person's console. Come on now. That's the way I thought of it as a kid. I was like, so mostly my experience is at the arcades, playing them, but gosh, it was so cool, and it was just the type of games I loved to play back then too, mostly like shooters or fighting games. And that was it for me. And so, yeah, super cool.
Nice. I dig it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Rest up. I do actually, I will say over on PCWorld's YouTube channel, I do have a video going up soon about, I got in the new MSI Kubinook AI Plus 3 MG. It is a sponsored video, but all they asked me to do was feature it on the channel. I will do some independent testing afterward, but it's the first Panther Lake device that I have in my hands, and I am very curious to hook that thing up to an eGPU.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, in MSI, I truly do think they do like offer really nice mini PCs, and this newest iteration cuts the size down to 0.5 liters. So it's a very, very small package. Yeah. It's got Panther Lake in it. Unfortunately, it's not the X variant, so it doesn't have the bigger GPU in it. But that's okay, because I think that's a perfect candidate for plugging an eGPU into it. Yeah, and then speaking eGPUs, I'm finally going to be recording the video of the Gigabyte AI box.
Yes. Good.
So and the reason why I'm not done with it, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why I'm strapped for time for a couple of other reasons, but the reason why I haven't been I haven't made the video is because I've been enjoying using it. Spoilers, maybe we'll talk about this next week, but I have used it as like a PC switch situation where I've plugged it into my handheld, into the TV, and docked my handheld, and I have never had a better experience with an eGPU.
That's the life
in that situation. Yeah, I've been having too many situations where I'm like, ooh, it would be cool to do this with it. Oh man, I wonder how it runs on this thing. And it really has opened up a world of possibilities. So maybe I should just, I'm getting scope creep. I should just focus on showing off the eGPU and, maybe briefly hint. But to me, I always rush to be like, okay, well, I want to test this. I want to get official benchmarks just so people can, understand what to expect performance wise. But really, I should just cover it and get it out there, because I really, really like the eGPU.
Yeah.
So anyway, look forward to that. But hey, take a break, rest up, massage your calves, drink some electrolytes.
Check on the horses, see how they're doing. I'm reading a book right now, and they were talking about preparing horses for a journey, and they're like, oh, make sure they're invittoled. And that was the word they used. And I was like, invittoled. And it was the idea of packing the horse with food, basic victuals, And so, but yeah, it was such a strange word. And I was like, wow, invittoled. I don't know.
Packing the horse with horse food, or you're saying packing human food onto the horse?
Packing human food onto your packs on a horse, apparently. I think that's what they were talking about. So, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
that
do that to your horses, please, if you're on your
rest
expedition.
Up, check on your horses, and we will be back next week to continue the expedition. Until then, we will catch you later. Thanks, Russ.
Bye, guys.